Okay, good morning. So we're starting Siman Reish Daled today. Dinei Brachas Liyesem Acholim. So now we've discussed Beri Pro 8, Beri Pro Adoma. Now we're going to turn to the Bracha of Shehakol. Says the Mishnah, says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, Reish Daled, Sif Aleph. Al Davar She'in Gidulei Min Haaretz, on something which is not grown from the ground, Kagoin Basar Behema Chayav Va'if, different types of meat, Dogim, fish, beitzim, eggs, cholov, milk, gvina, cheese, opas she'ifsha, bread which has become moldy, which is edible but is lost its surah of bread, v'tavshil she'nishtane tzurasa, a food which is a cooked item which has sort of changed its appearance, v'niskalkel, v'noivles, which is sort of which he carries on and explains, she'im tamarim, she'bishal masar from hachayim v'yavshu, which have been sort of sunburnt, v'al hagoivai, and locusts, v'al hamelach, v'al mei melach, and salt water, v'al hamorok, and soup, v'al kmein or pitres, mushrooms, v'al koira, which is a gourd, shehu harach halitosav be'ilon b'chol shana, which is sort of grown on the tree. We'll see in a second what that means. Shekurin palmitoi. Okay, well let's just stop there and we'll do the Mishnah Berurah on those things. So all of these you make a shehakol. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Aleph, Sif Katan Aleph, or Pas She'ifsha. So the most common ones, of course, he mentions meats and fish and eggs and cheese and milk, etc. That's Shehakol. But you've also got Pas She'ifsha. What does that mean? Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'niskalkel k'tzas alidei zeh, Te'ilu niskalkel gamre, if it was totally moldy, V'lo chozi la'achilas odom, then ein mevarchen olav klal, or chodel kamilin tavshil. It's not, that wouldn't work. You wouldn't make a brach on it. Base for niskalkel, Mairi gamkein shniskalkel ktsas for legamre. Again, we're talking about where it's partially ruined. Dilav hochi afilu shehakol l'shaych levruche, because then you wouldn't even make a shehakol if it's totally ruined. Shebishlam usarfam. So these are the novlos, which are the tmorim, which are sort of sunburnt. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Gimel, Hainu alidei streifas hachayim nispashu v'nisyavshu. They were cooked and dried out. V'nishtanu legrius. They've become bad. V'ayimashik savnul el b'simen reish beis Sif Tes. The Mishnah Berurah ve'er halacha. Val hagoivai. What is that? Shehu min chogov tahar. It's a kosher type of locust. We know there are some type of locusts which are okay and some not. La'afuke mir Rabbi Yehuda. This comes to exclude the position of Rabbi Yehuda. The Omar Sham b'Mishnah, Kol shehu min klala shela klalahim bo, and they come because of the curses. Ein mevarchin olav, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is you don't make a bracha on locusts at all because they're like a cursed. They come because of a klala. You know, this week's parasha, right? Last week's parasha, one of the 10 makkos. Val hamelach. Since you get some sort of benefit, so then you make a brach on salt and on salt water. But it's got to be that it's somewhat edible. It's if it's so salty, for example, the salt water that you just can't eat it, then not. Val hamorok on soup, shel basar. It's like a meaty soup. They have like a Yemenite meat soup. Because if it's going to be like a fruit soup or a vegetable soup, then it could be different. I'm a Simon Reish Beis, seafood, yeah. Kamehin, Sif Katan Zayin. So we're still going through all the food items which require Shehakol. Kamehin are mushrooms. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Zayin, Oysen shemetzuyin tachas hakarka v'nivroim mishuman haaretz, or pitres gedelim al ha'itzim. So kamehin are those which sort of grow on the ground, and pitrios are those that grow on bushes or trees or things like that. Number 4 has got an interesting note. What if, it's quite, sometimes it's a chiddush for people to know that mushrooms you make shehakol. Right? Everyone knows that, but mushrooms you make shehakol because they don't grow from the ground. They're a fungus which grow on the ground or on trees. So if you look at footnote 4, he says, what if you by mistake made the beri pradoma on mushrooms? The cost of our kafachayim, sheyotz b'di'evet. The kafachayim says the b'di'evet yosek in the Gemara shenechshem karka, because according to the one opinion, according to the Gemara in Brachas Memon Beis, they are nechshav k'gidulei karka v'chein cost of Orach HaShulchan, and that is how the Orach HaShulchan says as well, that b'di'evet, if you made a beri pradoma on mushrooms, you're yotzeh. He then, however, brings the Shevet Halevi, who says Tom Olov. He questions the Orach HaShulchan, who says that since the Yanika is from the ground, you be Yosef B'Dev V'Pradama. He says Shemefurish B'Gemara Sham She'em Yokim Haaretz v'nisha bedin zeh tzarchi, and he leaves it as a tzarchi. And how can the Orach HaShulchan and the Chaim both say this? Anyway, but l'chatchila certainly you should make a shehakol on mushrooms. Okay, then the Mechaber carried on and said on kaira, which is the sort of some part of the tree which sort of grows with the tree, you make a shehakol. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Ches, Shu Orach Shel Dekel. It's the soft part of the palm. K'sha'anof of Gedelim b'chol Shalom Shana, when the branches grow year on year, the additional bit for this year, before it becomes hard, is soft, and it's edible. And then next year, this soft addition will become harder and no longer edible. So in the interim, till it becomes hard, it's you make a shehakol. Hanitoisaf, the afagav, says the Mishmurus, you've gotten test, the afagav, the gedulim in aretz, afilu hachilim mevarchin afilu alea bepradoma ele shehakol. The lo not inshio ilana daitel mechel sakerik shurach. People didn't plant it to eat it when it was soft. The memayit anfihoilim, because you'll take away the branches of the tree. You want it to go hard and to become proper branches. Ele sheizkash v'yase eitz v'yigdal pri. Kosvataz, the kidneys retuvin, wet beans. B'shel, like moist beans, b'shel ganesh and Israel adas lemechel chayin, which are eaten moist and raw. Mevarich berpradoma, afilu al hasharvitin levad, even if it's on the stalks themselves, you make a berpradoma. The almanas kein nizru, because it was sown in order to plant it, in order to be eaten in that way. Aval shel sodes, but in the fields, shedarkan anichan achinis yavshuv lachol mevushalin, when the way is to let it dry out and to eat, to cook them. In that situation, you're eating them premature, and therefore you make a shehakol. But if, however, you did cook them, then you make a ber pradoma. He questions this. Any type of beans, many achronim say, that you make a ber pradoma so long as they're moist, they haven't dried out. And that is indeed our minag. Omnam le'in hashavitzim, regarding the stalks, yesh de'ez ben achronim k'shleichin levadon below akinyas. Some say that if you're eating just the stalks of these things, they debate that. V'alkein tov lechatchila lizoy sheyechlim akinyas v'yivarech al akinyas levad bepradoma v'lo yivarech oid al hashavitin, and don't make a bracha on the stalks at all. V'im'ira she'oichel hashavitin levad yivarech shehakol. If you're eating the stalks alone, then you make a shehakol. Okay, let's just finish off the other items that require shehakol. So top line of Kuf Yud Aleph, back to the Mechaber, va'al lulvei gefonim, va'al shekedim mesukim, on the palm branches and on almonds which are sweet, she'oichlim mesan kashem rakim beklipehem, when you eat them before they're fully matured, but they're still very soft. Va'al chozes, we'll see what these things are. V'hu shachas, which is shachas is I think it's like some sort of, I think he translates it as a dill. Shachas tfush levi shlish. No, it's shachas is the Gemara Babasras talks about with chazaka. Shlevi shlish is like, it's chozil achila for animals. It's like a very early stage of growth of plants and of crop like that. Shlevi shlish. Okay, so you eat the shachas, va'al korochai, on raw gourd, a type of vegetable like an aubergine or more like a courgette. Va'al kimcha de sa'ori, which is sort of a flour from barley. Va'al sheichar tamarim v'sheichar sa'irim, beer from dates and from sa'irim, from barley. Va'al meis sa'irim shemevashlim l'chayla. Va'al isvei de davro she'enem nizraim, on grass, on the wild grass which has not been sown. Va'al sheva, sorry, this is what I was thinking of. On dill, shekerin anitoi, rotzolei ma'anis. Va'al kamun, which is cumin, v'kaspur, which again is some sort of spice. Va'al chometz, which is not achila, but the time it's there for a spice, to flavor, not to eat. Va'al chometz she'arva b'mayim, and vinegar which you add water to, that you add enough water that is drinkable. All of those things mevarich shehakol for seder. Okay, so let's just go through the Mishnah on this. The love gefonim yud gam b'zeh atam k'moi b'kaira. Yeah, that you make a shehakol mesukim. So these are shkedim which are somewhat sweet and they're edible and they're very premature. You make a shehakol. Ushkedim Says the Mishnah Berurah, you've got Dalef, u'shkeidim morim, but bitter almonds, ein le'el, b'simen reish bei sif hey. Yes, if you look at note 9, he reminds us, there, the Shulchan Aruch writes, you make a ber pro eitz, machmas achila ha-klipa, u'mitam ha-chiluk, bein morim le-mesukim, kosov Mishnah Berurah. The difference between sweet and bitter almonds is, shema'achash ha-morim, since the almonds are very bitter, lo yeh ru'uyim l'achila klal, you plant them to eat them raw when they're sort of in the very minor stages, and the klippa is edible and it's sweet. So therefore you would make a ber pro'etz. Masha enkein, here you're going to be making a shehakol. Okay. Kashem rakim beklipehem, says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Beis, v'after kaim alon le'el b'simen reish beis sif beis. B'sha'ar kol ilonis, the Mashiach assume pri choshev tekef pri. Even when they bring a fruit out, it's considered the pri from day one. Shani halsam duhnena migufa pri. You planted it for the pri, and you're benefiting from the fruit itself, so you make a ber pro'etz. Aval hacha here b'shkedim mesukim b'katnusam eina nena emina pri rak me'aklipa chitzona. Here we're talking about the outer husk of the almond, and on that you make a shehakol. V'lo notilu inshi adaita de klipa el adaita de garinehen k'shis bashlu v'domi lekeira. You're not planting it for the clipper itself, and therefore it doesn't become a ber pro'etz. Rather, it still remains a shehakol. Shachas, what is that? Yud Gimel tvua shelei hevia shlish. It's early stages of this crop. V'chazi lachila, but it's still edible. Umishum delei gomar peri nochas chad darga mi pri adoma l'shehakol. It's sort of one away from a pri adoma, and it's still got a status of shehakol. V'adin l'chol pri adoma delei gomar peri v'chazi lachila shehakol. And that's the general rule. If it's not yet developed into a ber adoma, it's still quite raw, so then you would make a shehakol. Yud Dalet, chaya, what is this going on? Koro chaya, a raw gourd. Shehu toiv mavushal yosa michai. Imagine like a courgette or something like that, a big courgette. Then it's better raw. It's better cooked than it is raw. And therefore, if you eat it raw, and the shtan is berachos l'shehakol. Sif Aleph. Kimcha de Sa'ari, what is that? Barley flour. Afilu hanasim meshubolim meshemiyabshin. Even if you make it from stalks which are dried, the tovim lachila ksas, which is somewhat edible. V'lav dafka de Sa'ari, lav dafka barley. Duadin kemach shel kol chamisha minei dogon. Any of the 5 grains can move come b'simen reish ches sif hey. V'haydenok at the Sa'ari, and that which it says sa'ar, which is sa'irim, which is barley. Since it sort of causes intestinal worms and it's not very pleasant, I might have thought you don't make a bracha at all on these things. The Gemara says, since you get some sort of benefit, some sort of hana from it, you still make a bracha even though it is later injurious to you. V'sheichar sa'irim, and beer, date beer, barley beer, since it's clear and it's oimed l'shtia, it's there for drinking. It hasn't yet developed into a ber mezonos bracha, and rather you make a shehakol. Ber mezonos is a food. Like on whiskey, you don't make a ber mezonos, even though it's from barley, of course. So on this flour of barley, you make a shehakol. On barley water, because it's made for drinking, and therefore you make a shehakol. Even on this wild grass, which is nice to eat, Shvetza, I don't know what that is. I've got a note here. On the bottom he says in number 8, chemtzis, which I think is like a buttercup. It's sort of little flowers. Shein olin chamutzim, which got bitter leaves. Even though it's a very fancy food when they're cooked. Mevarchin shehakol, you still make a shehakol. It's not really a fruit. Al salatin, which is salad, lettuce, things like that. Lettuce and salad, that's a ber adoma. But any sort of flowers, which are not really ber adoma, you make a shehakol. She'enam nizra'im, you test. This is going on the sheves. This is going on. No, it's not. It's going on the isvei de davro, which are not sown. This grass, wild grass. For dafka asovim de'inim chashuvim mitzad atznon lo mitzad zriya. to gedelim v'lo yizriya, they just grow, they're wild. Avol peirish shehin tovim lemachal, but fruit which are good to eat. Afilu gedelim biyar ma'alein, even if they grow by themselves in the forest, kamei pazimkas chadoma yesh levarach alein beri pri adoma. Which is like some sort of strawberry-like things. Those you make a ber adoma even though they grow wild. But the grass, you would make a shehakol on that. Okay, va'al kamoin, which is cumin, he says they're kimmel. Do you remember there used to be a liqueur, a kimmel liqueur. V'chasova alandrus belaz. To the time avidi, umayri bein berutuvim bein biyaveshin. Whether they're moist or whether they're dry, v'chenim rikchun b'dvash, and if you grind them with honey, nami shehakol, they're also cool, they're also considered shehakol. Okay, and let's just finish off. V'lo la'achila, achenim sholak es ha'anis, mevorech al meimov beri pri ha'adoma, v'telahochi kaim elahatim es ha'tavshil. What's this going on again? Chaf beis. This is the cumin, yeah. So if you make it into a drink, so then that could be a ber pri ha'adoma. Ad sherei lishtes, after mitchiloso havayayin, kim shenishtanav nasa chometz ibeid ma'alose. So even though originally chometz was wine, but since you're adding water to it, and then you make it's now changed from wine, and therefore you make a shehakol. So there we have it. The things that we're familiar with, of course, is meat and eggs and fish and cheese. That's all shehakol. But there are other things which are going to be a shehakol bracha as well.